Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday, July, I think 15th now, and I'm over here at the Wohnpark Friedrichsau. As you can see, right up here, we have Volksfest going on right now, and this just started a couple days ago, and yeah, it's nice. I've been to quite a few festivals now, and I'm starting to realize that they pretty much just go on all year round. I think these companies who own these roller coasters and all this equipment, all the carnies, I'm pretty sure they're just, you know, employed year round, and they just travel and tour the country, and they just keep doing this. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We're probably gonna try to hit this up tomorrow because it's already like a little bit late for today. I was just on a run right now and going to check this out, but yeah, so finals are done, the semester is finished, and things are looking pretty good so far. The tests were very tough, just like I thought they were going to be. So I'll have to wait and figure out the outcome of those exams. I won't know for like another week or two what the status is on that. So we'll see. I just hope I passed. I really just hope I passed at this point. So yeah, a couple of problems on each of the exams. I had little to no idea what to do. One of my strength and materials, the very last problem was tough. I didn't get anywhere near finishing it. The problem was worth 28 points, which means it should take about 28 minutes to complete it, because the exam is 90 minutes, 100 points. So each problem, let's say, you know, it's worth, yeah, 28 points. It is just a little bit lower than the amount of time. So usually you equate that to how much time each problem should take. So that's like a good estimate, and I think I got to problem number 4 with like 14 minutes left. So I already knew I'm not gonna finish this, but I'm trying to remain optimistic, you know. That was strength and materials. Dynamics though, I feel like it was even worse, and the rough thing about it is that afterwards I spoke to my tutor about the problems, and he said, yeah, you know, it's kind of like this problem that we worked on, except this system is just flipped upside down, but it's the same rules apply. So if anybody out there, you know, if you've taken these courses, you'll know exactly what I mean. Or even if you've taken like physics, you know, basic physics, mechanics, you'll understand kind of what I'm talking about. Doing free body diagrams and just doing force or stress analysis on bodies, rigid bodies, elastic bodies, whatever it is. So, you know, problems can range from, you know, semi-tough to like, oh wow, that was a tough, you know, like kind of on the easier side, and then, oh yeah, that was a tough problem, to, dude, that problem was like really hard. There was a lot of like tricky components to it, you know, like if you have a system, you have a body, and you're looking at the forces on it, well, you know, there's only, at some point, it's like, yeah, you kind of just do the same thing over and over again. But in this dynamics class, it's not only just the same old stuff that you used to do in physics. They really bump it up a notch, and you have to look at some of like the kinematic relationships between, you have to look at the kinematic relationships with respect to like translational and rotational quantities. So like linear velocity or angular velocity. You know, if you have like a circular disc or whatever, you know, there are relationships that you can derive from that alone to eliminate your unknowns in your equations of motion. So there's a lot of tricky stuff in there, a lot of really tricky geometry too. They don't just make it easy. It's not always just going to be, you know, f times the cosine or f times the sine of the angle. Sometimes you're gonna have to go in there and do like some do some trig, maybe some trig identities, maybe throw in trigonometric quantities using like the quadratic equation as your coefficients, so you have all these sines and cosines bouncing around everywhere. And then really weird like arc length of a circle, you know, plus a linear distance, and then you use that for like your energy equation, you know, when you're looking at like resistive forces. So like just a lot of really tricky things, you know. Once you set these problems up, the math is easy. The math is, you know, it's straightforward. You know, if you're taking calculus and trig and algebra, all that stuff combined, you know, it's pretty straightforward. But getting the problem set up and deriving your equations, that's the tough part. And then looking at your relationships that you have. Okay, I don't know this variable, but I know that that velocity is going to equal 2 times the velocity, you know, from the top of the circle at the bottom of the circle when you're doing rotational things. Anybody who's taking dynamics, you'll know what I'm talking about. But just a lot of really, like I said, I can't stress that enough. A lot of really tricky things, like, and it's not even tricky, it's just, those are just the problems, but it just goes to show the level of difficulty. You know, there's no softballs thrown down the plate. There's hardly any of those at all. Most of the stuff you really have to think, and you have to think on the spot and quickly. So they're doing exactly what they should be doing, is they're training us to become engineers and to become, most importantly, problem solvers. So again, finished my 2 exams. I'm feeling okay about them. You know, worst case scenario, I can actually retake my exams. You know, I'm really hoping that that doesn't come to that, but if I do, at least I know that much. I can at least keep on studying and retake them, whether it's both classes or just one of them. And then the very last thing I can do is, like, apparently if I don't do it on the second time, if I don't pass it on the second time, I guess I can do like a an oral exam. And they say if you get to that point, you're probably not going to end up with a good grade in the class, but you at least pass it. So my tutor said, like, it's really hard to have to get all the way to that point and not pass a class, which is kind of strange, because then it makes me think, like, okay, well, just does everybody pass then? Or maybe a lot of people get to that point and they try to do the oral exam and they don't pass it. Who knows? So I'm trying not to stress out on it too much, but it just goes to show that you know, this stuff really is, it's a challenging material, it's difficult material, you know. And you know, maybe I've made it this far to Germany, and maybe I've had the opportunity to do this. That doesn't mean that I know it all. That doesn't mean that I'm the smartest guy out there. I'm far from that, you know. I struggle just like anybody else, and sometimes it takes me a long time to learn this material. It's freaking hard, it's difficult. I'll be the first one to say that. I love sharing with people or on Instagram or wherever, like, the problems that I'm working on. I'm like, hey, check this out, this looks cool, you know, this is really cool stuff that we're learning. But by no means am I saying, oh, hey, look at this piece of cake. It's never a piece of cake. It's difficult. So I understand, you know, if I made it this far, I could definitely make it the rest of the way. And I understand why a lot of people get half as far as I do and they give up. I get it. I totally understand, you know. I hear that all the time. Oh yeah, I'm changing my major. I'm gonna do X, Y, or Z, you know. And I'm just like, man, don't give up, you know, just keep going. But it's very discouraging if you don't understand these concepts, like, of physics and mathematics, which can be very difficult. If you can't digest that and you can't understand the way these things work, then it really is difficult to get through it. I'm actually now questioning whether or not I want to go to grad school, because I'm thinking, man, this stuff is pretty tough. If grad school is going to be twice as harder, or 4 times as harder, as difficult, man, do I really want to do grad school? But I think either way I'm going to apply, and I'm going to see what happens. If I'm able to get into a good program, you know, I do have research experience. I did enjoy doing research last summer. You know, if I'm able to actually get accepted to grad school, then why not, you know? May as well get it done, you know? And that's if I want to, you know. It's not just about having that master's degree, or having that title or just saying that you did it. You know, I feel like you should do it if you really are passionate about it, because if you're not, you're just going to be suffering for 2-3 years. So yeah, I'm now questioning grad school because of how difficult this semester is, but at the same time I feel like my tolerance for pain has definitely gone up, so that's a good thing too. I've learned a ton while I've been here in Germany, and I feel like even though these exams are really hard, I feel like, man, if I go back to Chico State, give me any exam, I'll pass it. I'll knock it out of the park. That's how I feel, because I know that the Germans are like way up here when it comes to their education. So I'm sure it's probably more difficult than the stuff that we're doing at Chico State. We'll see though, and I don't mean that as a put down or anything. Maybe the professors at Chico State are just as hard. I don't know, because I haven't taken these classes at Chico State, you know? But I can say for sure that statics, which is first semester engineering mechanics, statics compared to Technische Hochschule Ulm is a piece of cake. I looked at my old exams, and then I looked at the finals and the assignments that they do at the Hochschule. It's insane. In statics, you might have like a couple forces or like a moment applied on one end or whatever, and you get to do like 2 free body diagrams, boom, and you're done. Statics at Hochschule Ulm, man, they're cutting stuff open. They're looking at internal forces. They're looking at NQM, all those internal forces and shear moment diagrams. They're doing all that stuff like to the nth degree on their assignments and on their final exams. I looked at one of their final exams for statics. I've actually looked at several of them, but I looked at one of them and I was thinking, that exam is so much more difficult than what we do at Chico State. So it just goes to show, like, at the Hochschule, I mean, they're way up here, as opposed to like with respect to like the intensity of their classes. So anyway, it's just a different vibe, you know. I mean, for all I know, they could be over teaching stuff that like you really don't do as much, and maybe at Chico State they say, hey look, the only real stuff you're going to apply is this stuff. So who knows? I'm just speculating on that. But anyways, I will check in and let you guys know how my grades are with my Klausur, and we'll cross my fingers. Bitte drück mir die Daumen that I did well and I don't have to repeat it. Alright, bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss.